Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me for day 65 of Insights. I want to talk to you a little bit about what was going on um, during the time that the verse that we prayed on this morning, Acts 5, verses 38 and 39. I want to tell you what was going on there. And I've tried twice. This is my third shot at recording this video, and I cannot say it any better than it says it in the Bible. So I'm going to tell you the story right quick by reading it to you from the Bible out of the NLT. So I'm starting with Acts 5. Let's see. Verse 17. The high priest and his officials, who were Sadducees, were filled with jealousy. They arrested the apostles and put them in public jail. But an angel of the Lord came at night, opened the gates of the jail, and brought them out. Then he, that's the angel, told them, "Go to the temple and give the people this message of life." So at daybreak, the apostles entered the temple as they were told and immediately began teaching. When the high priest and his officials arrived, they convened the high council, the full assembly of the elders of Israel. And they sent for the apostles to be brought from jail for trial. But when the temple guards went to the jail, the men were gone. So they returned to the council and reported, "The jail was securely locked, with the guards standing outside, but when we opened the gates, no one was there." Okay. When the captain of the temple guard and the leading priests heard this, they were perplexed, wondering where it would all end. Then someone arrived with the startling news: "The men you put in jail are standing in the temple teaching the people." The captain went with his temple guards and arrested the apostles, but without violence, for they were afraid the people would stone them. And then they brought the apostles before the high council, where the high priest confronted them. "We gave you strict orders never again to teach in this man's name," he said. "Instead, you have filled all Jerusalem with your teaching about him, and you want to make us responsible for his death." But Peter and the apostles replied, "We must obey God rather than any human authority." Okay, so it goes on a little bit more, and then Gamaliel, that's when he says this. Now, Gamaliel was a very respected elder, teacher, a leader of the Pharisees, and they generally listened to him. He was actually one of Saul's teachers, and Saul became Paul. Okay, so our verse says, so my advice, that's Gamaliel's advice, is leave these men alone, let them go. If they are planning and doing these things merely on their own, it will soon be overthrown. He's right. If they're not working in cahoots with God, if they're not on God's side doing God's work, it'll just peter out. It'll just slowly vanish. It'll be gone. You won't have to worry about it. But here's the insight. But if it is from God, you will not be able to overthrow them. That's right, because God wins every time. And think about what just happened. They threw these men in jail, and the next morning they were not in jail, but the gates were still locked and the guards were still on duty. If that's not an obvious act of God, I don't know what is. So yeah, they were blinded by hatred. But Gamaliel, he wasn't. He's like, "Hey, you guys, what if? What if this is from God? You're going to lose this battle. You may even find yourselves fighting against God." Well, it's just like I said, that's a losing battle. You don't fight against God and win. You just don't. And y'all, this kind of strikes another chord in me to people who have not accepted the Lord and are constantly fighting against God. That's kind of scary, y'all. We have to share. We have to share what we know because they don't know it yet. And we need to pray that God will soften their hearts so that when we tell them, they will accept it. because we don't want anybody to be fighting against God. Not especially those that were trying to get saved. And most of the people, a lot of people were trying to get saved are people we love so much that just don't know the Lord yet. But it's not just those people. It's people everywhere. It's even people that we don't like, that we don't love so much. They're walking in darkness too. And y'all, lives change when you give them to the Lord. Pretty much the instant you give your life to the Lord, it changes. Now, your circumstances might not change, but yourself, you change. Your whole attitude changes. All of a sudden, you can hear God's voice and you can talk to Him because you're His child, because you just accepted Him. So, we got to get this news out, y'all, about how loving Jesus is. How much He loves us, and it doesn't matter what we've done in the past. All we have to do is trust Him, believe that He is God, confess our sins, admit our weaknesses, ask for His help. He will come right in. He will open up those ears. He will start talking to you, because we don't want to be fighting against Him. We want to be fighting with Him, because when we are walking in victory. So y'all share this with anybody you think who might need to hear it, and let it just soak in and go to your heart. And think about things that we are fighting against. Are we fighting against God's will and God's plan, or are we fighting against the ways of the world? And ask God for discernment. He'll give us the wisdom. His word says, I will grant you wisdom in abundance to all who ask, and without reproach. That means you get to keep it no matter what. Even if you mess up going forward, you still get to keep the wisdom. All right, y'all. I don't want to make this too long, but it's so important. Be blessed and think about it, and share it with people you think might need a little hope as well, and maybe a little guidance not to fight against the Lord. Thank you, friends.